I contain multitudes. 3:47 a.m., the hour when thoughts refuse to stay quiet, when your mind becomes both a companion and a stranger. Lately, these nights have been happening more often. The voices in my head aren't just thinking, they're questioning me, pushing me. Sometimes I wonder if they're trying to tell me something I'm too afraid to hear. I'm Alexander Gray, and tonight, we need to talk about talking to ourselves. Welcome to Vertigo. I've been sitting at home for hours, watching my reflection in the window grow darker as the night deepens. Trying something impossible, catching my mind in the act of thinking. Stop talking to yourself. Go ahead. Try it. I'll wait. Strange, isn't it? The moment you try to silence the voice in your head, you're using the very voice you're trying to silence. One of your multitudes trying to quiet the others. Something broke in me last night. Not in the way glass breaks, but in the way dawn breaks. A slow, inevitable unraveling of everything I thought I knew about consciousness. I was writing in my journal, ordinary thoughts, everyday reflections, when suddenly I noticed the absurdity of it all. Who exactly was I writing to? Which version of me held the pen? And which version would read these words tomorrow? The question cracked open like a seed in my mind. Because if I'm listening to my thoughts, who exactly is doing the listening? And if I'm thinking about my thinking, who's doing that thinking? Every attempt to answer spawns new questions. Each voice that speaks reveals another voice behind it, observing, commenting, questioning, like mirrors reflecting mirrors, thoughts thinking thoughts, until the voice in your head is not your friend. The voice in your head is not your enemy. The voice in your head is not yours. I am large. I contain multitudes. Strange, how Walt Whitman's words take on a different meaning at 3 a.m., when the world grows quiet enough to hear all your different voices arguing in the dark. You know that moment when you're lying in bed, rehearsing tomorrow's conversation, and suddenly you catch yourself. Who exactly is doing the rehearsing? And who's playing all the other parts? The other night, I found myself having an entire argument in my head, playing both sides, winning and losing simultaneously. Until I started wondering, how did we learn to do this? This strange art of being both the performer and the audience of our own internal theater. Think about it. No one ever taught you how to talk to yourself. No school lesson covered the basics of inner dialogue. Yet here we are, all of us, carrying entire civilizations in our heads. Some nights, when I'm writing in my journal, I catch my reflection in the window. And for a split second, it's like I'm trapped in being John Malkovich. I see myself from the outside, writing about myself, while thinking about myself, while watching myself think. Like those endless mirrors in an elevator, each reflection containing another reflection, into infinity. Modern psychology likes to talk about the inner child, the higher self, the ego, as if we could neatly categorize these voices, label them, put them in boxes. But what if, like Whitman knew, we're not just housing a few distinct voices? What if we're more like a crowded city at night? Millions of lights and millions of windows. Each one a different version of ourselves. The one who dreams, the one who doubts, the one who remembers, the one who regrets. All of them talking. All of them living. All of them thinking they're the real you. Have you ever noticed how your inner voice changes, depending on who you're thinking about? How it takes on your mother's tone when you're questioning your choices. Your father's certainty when making decisions. Your childhood best friend's laugh when remembering the past. These aren't just memories. They're active parts of you, living voices in your internal symphony, each one shaped by every significant moment, every person you've ever loved, every book that changed you, every film that moved you. Beckett understood this when he wrote, "In my head, I'm talking to you now. In my head, you're talking back. In my head, who exactly is speaking?" Because that's the terrifying beauty of consciousness. It's not a single stream of thought. It's an ocean. Waves upon waves of voices. Some deep and ancient. Some new and uncertain. Some speaking languages we've forgotten we knew. Sometimes, in those rare moments between thoughts, when you're not trying to be anyone, not trying to think anything, you can almost hear them all at once, like a distant chorus, singing a song you've always known, but never learned. And maybe that's the first step to understanding this mystery, recognizing that the voice in your head isn't just one voice pretending to be many, but many voices, pretending to be one. Each morning I kill the voice that wakes me, only to find it's the voice doing the killing. You know what's strange about memory? The way your mother's voice, telling you to stand up straight, never really fades. Even decades later, even after everything changes, that voice remains. As fresh as yesterday, as real as your own. Last week, I caught myself in a peculiar moment. Standing in front of my bathroom mirror, fixing my tie, and suddenly I heard it. My father's voice. Word for word. A gentleman always checks his knot twice. But here's the unsettling part. It wasn't a memory. It was my voice. Using his words, his tone, his certainty. We think our thoughts are our own, our inner voice unique to us. But start paying attention, really listening, and you'll hear them. All of them. The teachers who shaped you, the friends who changed you, the lovers who left their mark. Each one leaving behind a voice, a way of thinking, a lens through which to view the world. Margaret Atwood wrote about the mind being like a prisoner, talking to itself, having forgotten there was ever a world outside the walls. But what if the walls themselves are built from other people's voices? How many of your opinions are really yours? How many of your fears were inherited? How many of your dreams were whispered into your ear so long ago, you've forgotten they weren't yours to begin with? The other day, I was walking through a bookstore, picking up random volumes, reading first lines, and in every book, I could hear the author's voice merging with mine. Dostoevsky's fury, Kafka's doubt, Plath's despair, all of them becoming part of my internal chorus. We're not just carrying our own voice, we're carrying an entire ancestry of voices, a linguistic DNA, passed down through generations, through books, through screens, through every conversation we've ever had. Your morning anxiety, perhaps it's speaking in your mother's dialect of worry. Your ambition, maybe it's using your father's grammar of success. Your self-doubt, could it be whispering in the accent of that teacher who never believed in you? But here's what keeps me awake at night. If our inner voice is just an echo of all the voices we've ever heard, all the words we've ever read, all the stories we've ever been told, then who is doing the listening? Who is seeing? Who is hearing? Who is thinking? Douglas Harding's questions hung in the air of his meditation hall, but he might as well have been asking them in a hall of mirrors. Try something with me, right now. Try to catch yourself in the act of thinking. Try to observe your own mind at work. Do you feel it? That strange vertigo, like you're chasing your own shadow. The harder you try, the further it slips away. Last night I tried this for hours. By the end, I wasn't just frustrated, I felt lost, as if the act of looking for myself was erasing whatever self might have been there. Heidegger called it the impossibility of self-grasping. But I think he missed something darker, something more unsettling. It's not just that we can't catch ourselves thinking, it's that every attempt to catch ourselves creates another thought we need to catch. The mystics knew this. The moment you try to observe your mind, you've already split yourself in two. The observer and the observed. But then who's observing the observer? And who's watching that watcher? It's like those Russian nesting dolls, each time you open one, thinking you've found the real you. There's another one inside, another layer of consciousness, another level of awareness, until you begin to wonder, is there anything at the center at all? And here's where it gets stranger. Science tells us consciousness takes time, that split second between something happening and you becoming aware of it, which means you're always living in the past, always chasing a self that's already gone. The other day, during a thunderstorm, I watched lightning split the sky, and in that brief illumination, I understood something. We're not failing to catch our thoughts because we're not fast enough. We're failing because the very act of trying to catch them creates new ones. Anne Carson wrote about echoes and sources, about how impossible it is to tell which is which. But maybe that's the point. Maybe there is no original voice, no true self hiding beneath the layers. Just the endless dance of consciousness, watching itself watch itself. The more you try to quiet the mind, the louder it gets. Alan Watts understood something crucial about our desperate attempts at silence. Have you noticed how impossible it is to just experience anything anymore? Everything has to be narrated, commented on, analyzed in real time. The sunrise is beautiful, but is it really? Take a picture, share it. Does it still matter if no one likes it? Breathe, pause. Wait, you're supposed to be present. Congratulate yourself on being mindful. No, that's not it. Try again. Always talking, commenting, like a sports announcer narrating your every move. Why can't you just be? Jung once suggested that thoughts think themselves, that we don't think any more than our heart beats or our lungs breathe. We just take credit for the process. But here's what terrifies me. We've become addicted to this commentary, this constant narration of our own lives. Like we're afraid that any experience, without our mental footnotes, might somehow slip through our fingers. Yesterday, I tried to drink a cup of coffee, just drink it, without thinking about drinking it, without judging it, without planning my day, without remembering other coffees. 3 sips in, I caught myself thinking, this is good. You're being mindful. See, you're improving. And just like that, the commentary was back. I slammed the cup down, angry at how impossible it seemed. To just exist, to let a single moment pass without narrating it to myself. It wasn't the coffee that bothered me. It was the realization that I've become addicted to this commentary. Like I'm afraid of what might surface if I ever let it go silent. It's like we're all trapped in an endless director's commentary of our own lives, unable to just watch the film, always needing to explain it, analyze it, compare it to other films. And maybe that's why meditation is so difficult, not because silence is hard to find, but because we've forgotten how to exist without our own running commentary. We've become like those sports announcers who can't let a single moment pass without description, without analysis, without filling the silence. What if our thoughts aren't really protecting us from the void? What if they're protecting the void from us, creating this constant noise, this endless chatter, to keep us from discovering what might lie in the spaces between thoughts? Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. Rumi wasn't talking about the absence of sound. He was pointing to something far more elusive. Sometimes, in those rare moments just before sleep or just after waking, there's a space, a gap between thoughts, where the commentary hasn't started yet, where you exist without narration. Most of us have forgotten these spaces exist, like city dwellers who can no longer see the stars. The mental light pollution of our constant thinking has hidden something precious from view. The Zen masters had a word for this, mushin, the mind before thought, not empty, but full, like a cup waiting to be filled, or maybe, like a cup that's already full, but of something our thoughts can't name. Last winter, I got lost hiking in the mountains. Night was falling, the air turning bitterly cold. My mind raced. Panic set in. What if I didn't make it back? But then, something strange happened. My thoughts didn't just slow, they vanished. For the first time, there was no voice in my head to comfort me or distract me. Just the raw, unfiltered reality of being alone, in the dark. At first, it was terrifying. But then, I felt something else. A presence I couldn't name. A silence that wasn't empty, but alive. And in that stillness, there was no voice, no commentary, no observer, no thought. Just the sound of the wind, the crunch of snow underfoot, and the quiet realization. That silence isn't absence. It's something far greater. And perhaps that's what we're really afraid of. Not the silence itself, but the vastness it reveals. The space that exists when we stop filling every moment with thought, with judgment, with the endless chatter of our inherited voices. Because in that space, when the chorus finally falls quiet, when the observer stops trying to observe itself, when the mirror stops trying to see its own reflection, something else becomes possible. Not the death of thought, but its rebirth. Not the silencing of our many voices, but their harmony. A different kind of inner dialogue. One that includes silence as part of its vocabulary. Maybe Whitman was right about containing multitudes, but perhaps he missed something. Maybe what contains all these voices isn't another voice at all, but the silence between them, the space that holds them all, without needing to be any of them. I contain multitudes. Sitting here now, as dawn begins to break, Whitman's words feel different. Not like a puzzle to be solved, but like a door being opened. We've been asking the wrong question all along. We've been trying to find out which voice is really ours, which self is really us. As if somewhere, behind all the voices, there must be an original, a true self, hidden beneath the chorus. But what if, like a symphony, the beauty isn't in any single instrument, but in the space between them all? The harmony that emerges when we stop trying to silence some voices to hear others. Perhaps the real miracle isn't that we talk to ourselves, but that we can listen. Not that we contain multitudes, but that something in us can hold them all, can hear them all, can be them all. And maybe, just maybe, freedom isn't found in silencing the voices, or in finding the real one, but in learning to conduct the orchestra, in understanding that you are not just the music, not just the musicians, but the silence between the notes, the space where all possibilities exist. So tonight, when you catch yourself in dialogue with yourself, when you hear all your different voices arguing in the dark, remember, you are not just the voice that speaks, not just the voice that listens, not just the voice that questions. You are the silence that holds them all, the awareness that contains them, the space where they all dance. And perhaps, that's the greatest multitude of all. I'm Alexander Gray, and this has been Vertigo.